All right, so let's jump into this deep dive into the Bay Area rap scene. We're going to be looking at specifically some beefs and fallings out that rapper Filthy Rich has had over the years
Yeah.
with other rappers.
Yeah, and we have some really, really fascinating interviews with Filthy Rich, where he talks about his beef with Mozzy and Messy Marv. And I think what's so interesting about these particular situations is that they really kind of highlight this tension that exists in hip-hop sometimes, and particularly I think in the Bay Area rap scene, between the unwritten rules of the streets and then also the ambitions of these artists who are trying to make it big in the music industry. So you've got, on the one hand, you're supposed to be loyal to where you come from. You're supposed to have each other's backs. But at the same time,
Yeah.
you're trying to advance your career.
When sometimes
Those two things can come into conflict.
And that's exactly what Filthy Rich felt happened with Mozzy, where he felt like there was a code that was broken. He'd gone out of his way to clear a collaboration with Mozzy before, asked for his blessing.
Like, I'm thinking about doing this. Would you be cool with it?
But then when the tables were turned, that same courtesy was not extended back to him.
Right. And Filthy specifically mentions reciprocity. He saw it as a breach of trust. And what's interesting, he was actually there when Mozzy got asked to do the track. So you can imagine, I would love to have been a fly on the wall in that studio.
The tension must have been so thick you could cut it with a knife.
Right. I mean, did they even acknowledge each other? Did they even look at each other? What was going through Filthy's head?
It's so much deeper than just a song, though, isn't it? This is about respect, how respect is earned and lost.
Yeah, absolutely. And, especially in the Bay, your reputation is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Your credibility on the streets.
Yeah.
And I think what this really boils down to is a form of street politics that's playing out in the music scene. So it's not just about making music. It's about who you align yourself with. Every collaboration can be perceived as a power move, as a statement of loyalty.
So who's with me, who's against me type of thing.
Exactly.
And that kind of brings us to the Messy Marv situation, which is, I think, a whole other level of complicated. It wasn't about a song or a collaboration. It stemmed from the aftermath of the Oakland Arena robbery.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yes.
And Filthy Rich knew the person who was involved in the robbery.
Oh, wow.
And he felt really let down by Messy Marv's actions.
Oh, interesting.
And response to the situation.
Because I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that they were cool. Like, I thought they were good friends.
And they were. They were.
Yeah, so how does this even...
He even says that it was more like disappointment as a fan rather than just anger.
Oh, wow.
Which is really interesting to me.
That's a powerful statement.
Yeah, don't you think?
It really is. Because you can really see, I think, in this situation, how personal loyalty and then this desire to maintain a public image sometimes come into conflict.
And I think it also speaks to how invested fans can feel in the lives of these artists, and particularly in a genre like rap, where authenticity is so crucial. Like, it's that feeling you get when your favorite athlete does something that you can't stand. And suddenly, it's not just about their performance anymore. You're questioning who they are as a person. Right.
It challenges that parasocial relationship, that sense of connection that we build with artists through their music and through their public persona. And when that persona is shattered, it can be really disillusioning.
And here's another detail that adds fuel to the fire. Philthy and Juice actually had the video of the robbery before it went viral.
Oh, wow.
So imagine being in that position, seeing that event unfold.
And knowing what happened.
And then watching how Messy Marv navigates the fallout. I mean...
It definitely complicates things.
It really does. It makes you question how we respond when someone we admire acts in a way that contradicts our own values. Do we call them out? Do we stay silent?
Right.
How do we reconcile our personal code with the reality of their actions?
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's a really good question. It's a tough question.
Especially when you're dealing with someone who's not just a colleague, but someone you've looked up to and supported.
Right.
It's like
someone that you were a fan of.
Yeah. It's like a test of loyalty on a whole other level.
Absolutely. You know what else is interesting, though? Is that Filthy Rich has actually talked about how his own approach to beef has changed over time. Like, he's learned some things over the years. It's not always about, throwing diss tracks back and forth. Sometimes walking away can actually be more impactful.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily think that. Like, a rapper known for his street credibility would advocate for taking the high road, so to speak. So what brought about that shift in perspective for him?
Well, he's talked about how he's learned that sometimes, ignoring a situation can be more effective than actually engaging with it, especially in the age of social media, you know, where every little spat can turn into this full-blown viral moment.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The internet has a way of amplifying everything. Sometimes not adding fuel to the fire is the smartest move.
Exactly. And he's even admitted that, you know, in the past, he might have jumped on every opportunity to clap back with a diss track. But he's come to realize that engaging can actually give the other person more attention, more clout. You know, it's almost like you're promoting them, even if you're trying to tear them down.
It's true. Like, there's no such thing as bad publicity sometimes. So if you're constantly responding, you're basically playing into their game.
Exactly. And you know, Philthy has also reflected on how he might have handled some of these situations differently if he had had more guidance early on. From industry veterans, you know, people who had been through it all and understood the long game.
Hindsight's always 20/20. It's hard to make those calls, I think, when you're young and trying to establish yourself in a competitive industry like rap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's also important to remember that even though these feuds play out in the public eye, at the end of the day, these are real people with real emotions.
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the drama and forget that. There are human beings behind the music, behind the headlines.
Right. And it's interesting to see, too, how Philthy Rich's stance on beef kind of aligns with this broader trend that we've seen in hip-hop in recent years, where you see a lot of rappers actively seeking conflict resolution and promoting unity.
Yeah, I think that's really important, especially considering the history of violence in rap music.
Yeah.
So what do you think is driving that shift towards peace?
Well, I think there are a couple of factors at play. I think social media has definitely made people more aware of the impact of violence and conflict. You know, we see the consequences more directly. We see the families who are affected, the communities that are torn apart.
It's on our faces constantly.
Yeah. And I think maybe some artists are also just getting tired of the drama. You know, they've reached a point in their lives and in their careers where they want to focus on their art, on building something positive, rather than tearing each other down.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, you know, you think about it, a lot of these artists come from communities that have been heavily impacted by violence. So maybe they're realizing that perpetuating that cycle through their music isn't the answer. Like, they're using their platform to try to break the cycle instead of fueling it.
Yeah. And I think that's really powerful.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's refreshing to see that shift happening. I think it's a sign of growth, a sign of maturity, both for the artists themselves and for the culture as a whole.
It's interesting how Philthy Rich used that phrase, let down, when he talked about Messy Marv. Not even just anger, like he felt let down.
Yeah, like personally disappointed.
As a fan, it wasn't just business, it was personal.
It really highlights, I think, how complex these relationships are.
Yeah.
You know, it's not always just black and white, good versus bad. There's these layers of personal history, shared experiences, fandom even.
Yeah, and let's not forget, this wasn't just some fleeting collaboration. Philthy Rich was rocking with Messy Marv even after things went south in the Bay. They did an album together. Philthy even booked Messy for a show in Fresno.
Wow.
I mean, there was real history there.
So that makes the fallout even more significant then.
It does.
Yeah, like a friendship fractured by this like fundamental disagreement over loyalty and values.
Imagine having to navigate that so publicly.
With everyone watching, judging.
It's almost like when you find out that your favorite athlete has done something that you just find morally reprehensible. And it's not just about their performance anymore. It makes you question their character as a person.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Because it forces you to kind of reconcile your admiration for their talent with your disappointment in their actions. And sometimes that dissonance is just too much to bear.
So what does all this mean for our listeners? Why should they care about a rap feud from years ago?
Well, because this isn't just about a couple of rappers in the Bay Area. You know, this is about the human condition. This is about how we all navigate loyalty, respect, ambition in every aspect of our lives.
It's about family, friendships, work relationships.
Exactly. It's about those tough choices that we all face when our personal values clash with the actions of the people that we care about.
It's a good reminder, I think, that even in today's world, where things can feel so superficial and fleeting, those age-old principles still matter.
Absolutely. So as you go about your day-to-day, ask yourself, how do you define loyalty? What are your non-negotiables when it comes to respect? And how do you balance your personal values, with your ambitions and your goals and your dreams.
This deep dive has given us a lot to think about.
It has.
It's a reminder that there are always these layers of complexity beneath the surface.
Even in something as straightforward as a wrap beef.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, this was great. Really enjoyed this conversation.
Until next time.
Keep exploring those hidden depths.